Okay, so it has been a week and a bit now since WWDC, and some of us have been living with the beta release softwares for about 2 weeks now, since the actual release and the first keynote. I think that was about 2 weeks ago, exactly now. And in this podcast, you'll hear a conversation with me and Paul Lutz. Paul Lutz is a designer and geek alike. I really had a great time having this conversation with him on the podcast. This conversation, of course, was recorded during WWDC. So some of it might be stuff that you've already heard of, but this was a great conversation. So I think you will enjoy it. That's why I am publishing it now. Welcome to the Dive into Product podcast. This is the official DoBetterUX.com podcast where we talk about product design, product management, and how to get from idea to product as fast as possible and actually build products that users want to use and love to use every day. Before I play you the conversation with Paul, I'd like to give you a little bit of an update on the experience on how it has been living with this software on my devices. Now I've only updated my iPad, my Mac Mini, as well as my mobile phone. I haven't been able to update my watch. I think maybe that is because I'm using an Apple Watch SE and that might not be supported. I didn't really bother to look at if it's supported or not. But yeah, I've been living with these softwares on my devices for the past week, and here are some of the things that I want to speak about. So I think the customization time for Apple is definitely here. We have seen that, mainly on iOS with the icons and things like that. I probably mocked it a little bit in the conversation that you're going to hear next. But I see that there's a lot more focus now on allowing users to customize different things, even in the images, in the photo gallery. We have seen a lot of changes there that allow you to customize how you actually view and experience the Photos app. We have also seen a lot of customization on the widgets, sizing, as well as obviously the colorful widgets, right? But yeah, there has been a lot of bugs, obviously being beta release software. I'm not surprised, but the iPad has been the worst for me so far. It actually has been so bad that I had to downgrade it, right, to the previous iPad OS 17. I don't know which version was, but yeah, it has been the biggest thing that I struggled with. I had kind of like icons just kind of like sticking in the dock. I couldn't see my widgets until I actually resetted it before I did the downgrade. So it was a very weird thing that was happening there. And other things that I found, especially on the Mac, most of the video calling apps are struggling right now. So if you're using Teams, things like Zoom, I've seen most of those crash, whether you're using them in the browser or you're just using them, as the standalone software itself. I have not played around with tvOS as much as I have updated the tvOS. I was really looking forward to seeing Snoopy there, the new wallpapers and things like that, but I didn't see that. Having said that, I realized that there has been a lot of things that have been left out. Rather, we have not seen them in the first beta release that has been released so far. So there's a lot of things that are missing from Apple Intelligence preview, whether it's on the Mac or on the iPad. I'm using the M1 iPad and the M1 Mac Mini. So maybe some of those features have not been released to me yet. I have seen some people have features that I don't have, like the preview of the new Siri UI within Mac OS Sequoia. I saw a video, I think it was 9 to 5 Mac this morning, and it looked like they have a different update than what I have. I don't know if that is just because of the different hardware that I'm using, or if it is geo restricted to certain regions in the world. Having said that, macOS Sequoia looks pretty stable, and I've been using it pretty much for the past 2 weeks. Other than having a few crashes here and there uh, between my voice calls, also during an OBS recording, it has been pretty stable, right? So I'm going to leave you guys to enjoy the next conversation that I had with Paul Lutz during WWDC, and I hope that you reach out to him after you listen to the podcast, because I think he is a really interesting guy with a lot of interesting projects that is working on. So enjoy the podcast.
All right. So yeah, thanks for finally, well, maybe let me say we're finally doing it. It's been a long time in the making, right? Like I think we started this
Mm.
conversation about a month or so, maybe two ago now. But yeah, maybe you can we can start with just an intro about who's Paul, what do you do, and maybe mainly in the topic that we're going to be talking about today, which is in the VR space, in the Vision OS2 space. We'll get into
Mm.
WWDC soon. But yeah, quick intro by yourself.
Thanks. Hey, yeah, I'm really excited to be on and to be chatting. So Paul is me, and I'm a designer at heart, right? So I love to design products and experiences that people will use. But obviously, what comes with that are all the other aspects, businesses and being able to actually build them out. So I started off as a developer, turned into design, and now I started my own design studio where I'm helping startups to actually bring their ideas to life. A lot of the time, people have all these ideas in their heads, but no one else can visualize that. So at least
Mm,
now, they can visualize it and show a really cool early prototype of
hmm
what they have for investors. So yeah, that's my current journey, and obviously extremely intrigued by future tech. So the AI is intriguing, but especially the human interaction component when it comes to uh, spatial computing, augmented and virtual reality, and those types of things.
Yeah. So I've I've always looked at spatial computing as a gaming space, kind of like until the Vision Pro came out.
Mm.
I think is the one that really kind of like established this productivity space, right? Like, what are the use cases do you see kind of like this VR going into? I know that you're in this space. Like, what are some
Mm.
of the use cases do you see that are kind of like real world kind of like, use cases, right? Like that don't feel so gimmicky or just, pure gaming.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, gaming is totally the foundation on what everything was built. But the Vision Pro is a computer. It's not a gaming VR device like we see with you know the Oculus and a lot that came before it.
Hmm
And there's currently and there's where it's going. So currently, it's been used a lot for things like training. If you can simulate experiences and can simulate certain events, then you can train people for them without having to physically have the hardware there or even having to have them physically on location. So that is a great example of using this immersion to actually do that. Education obviously goes hand in hand with training, allowing people to see things or visualize or experience things they can't often do. But I do think that where it's expanding into a lot is entertainment, first and foremost, being
hmm
able to have a cinema while you're sitting on an airplane, for example, right
hmm
in front of you, and just taking yourself out of the actual environment you're in, or obviously dialing the environment back. I think that's sort of the superpower we have with these latest headsets is you're not isolated from the world anymore. You can see what's going on and what's happening there can be reflected onto you. So I've seen some really cool demos and products launching around entertainment. Like the obvious one is a sports app where you can, see the live stream for the sport. You can also see the leaderboards next to them, and you can even see the players playing on a little 3D map in the field in front of you. I mean, how cool is that to be able to see all that information all in one?
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually it's going to go everywhere. Like pretty much any application or any industry is going to be impacted by it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm pretty optimistic.
Yeah. But besides it being an Apple product, why the Vision
Mm.
Pro? What makes it special? Why not Oculus? Like, can we have all these use cases kind of like across, different platforms? Why Vision Pro?
So we have to have them across platforms, I believe. I think Meta is doing a wonderful job with the Quest. I guess it's not Oculus anymore; it's Meta Quest now. And they're doing some incredible things. Obviously, those devices are a lot more hardware limited. They aren't as fast. They don't have the best, the screens aren't as good as the Vision Pro, but you look at the price point. The Vision Pro is what, $3,000,
Yeah,
$3.5
three and a half
in
grand
dollars.
US dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Oculus starts, way lower than
Like,
that. So
yeah, about 500, like $400, like 399
yeah, and
somewhere
that's
there.
for
Yeah.
like the Quest 3. You can get Quest 2, even less than that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's we can't really compare the two that effectively.
Yeah.
I would say the Vision Pro is a better product. It's more expensive because it just has better hardware and software integration. So what I think the Vision Pro does do is it makes a lot more. It's a computer on your head and not a gaming device. When people think of the Meta Quests, they think of gaming, whereas with the Vision Pro, there aren't actually that many awesome gaming experiences on it yet. It's very much like productivity focused. So I think it's opening people's minds to what will be possible. But these are like early gen products. It's like, talking about the first cell phone or the first smartphone when it came out, right? It's just going to progress and become way better over time. So I don't think we should get too bogged down in the current limitations. Oh, it's heavy. Oh, the battery. Oh, this or that. But obviously, you need to consider those things if you want to buy those types of things at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I imagine a world where we are not moving around with our iPads and laptops and everyone is wearing, headsets. Yeah, the Starbucks situation will be quite interesting. We're just talking about it now, like, when I get out a little bit and go work at a coffee shop. But like, yeah, I'm just trying to imagine that scene. Cool. So I know you are a great product and tech geek like myself, and we both come from the design world. And I know that you had your eyes on WWDC, just as the rest of everyone else in the tech
Of
world.
course.
And I wanted to dive in a little bit on kind of like, maybe let's start with where kind of like the progression of the original Vision OS software to what is there now. I think there were a couple of APIs that were mentioned. Of course, we're still in WWDC at the time of the recording of this, so there might be some of that still being unpacked, right? So by the end of the week, we'll probably have more details. But at this point in time, is the Vision OS kind of like update exciting for you? What do you think about it? Where do you think kind of like the direction of the Vision Pro is going with what we've seen in the keynote?
Yeah, I mean, Vision OS 2 came quite quickly after the Vision Pro was launched. I think it was launched like 4 months ago, and now we're already on version 2 of the software. And it isn't a major update, right? Small tweaks here and there, some better gesture control for accessing certain system functions like going home and your control center. new immersive experiences or immersive views. You can finally rearrange app icons, which you couldn't do before. So some small tweaks and changes. I do think some of the features like in the Photos app, the ability to turn any image into a 3D image is something
cool.
that I know that when they just released the 15 Pros with the spatial video, I was like, well, with AI, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to turn any video or any image into a 3D thing at some point, right? And there it is, right? And that's extremely.
They just don't call it AI in the Photos app, but yeah.
No, they don't. They call it machine learning. And when they use the word AI, it's Apple intelligence. So extremely clever branding techniques there. But I mean, those I was really excited to see those smaller things come into the operating system, because what I was scared for is that all these new models and techniques for actually processing information with AI would just be slapped on, like a button in the corner with a little star on it, and now that's the AI feature. So I do think they incorporate it a lot better, right? It's more, but I mean, it's early days for Vision OS.
Very early days,
they really relying on. I mean, they announced there's like 2,000 apps on the App Store, which that's when you compare that to the number of iPhone and iPad apps, it's it's not that much yet. It's a growing ecosystem.
Those like native apps, or they mean like some of the iPad apps that you can use on Vision OS?
So I think there's, okay, now don't quote me on any of these numbers, but there are millions of actual apps that work on the Vision Pro, 2,000 native apps that have been developed specifically for Vision Pro, which is awesome. We've seen some really cool applications. But it's very much, to me, the Vision Pro isn't like the first iPhone, right? The first iPhone was something that, although it was more expensive, it was a lot more accessible when it came out, right? And people were using it out and about, and it sort of became a big thing by like version 3 or version 4. Where with this first Vision product, it's very much a testing ground. They want to see how our developers going to be using it, and until they release it, at least now they're releasing it in more countries, but until they release one globally at a way lower price, or at least a third of the price, then we'll start to see something that's a lot more commercially viable, I would say. I mean, so few people have experienced it in South Africa, for example, which but yeah, those are my thoughts. Nothing too major.
So do you think this version of the Vision Pro should have been called 1 point something rather than not 2?
To be honest, no, because that's Apple. That's their naming strategy. At this WWDC, it has to be a round number. Everything has to be a round number. And I do think that stood out to me is just the number of software platforms that company now has to maintain. It's insane. By the end of the event, my brain was foggy. I couldn't process anymore. I couldn't really, take in all the exciting Apple Intelligence announcements, even, because I'm like, okay, information overload.
Yeah,
right?
It was like densely packed, and I watched some interviews with Tim Cook after that with some YouTubers, and he was like they had to like actually cut and edit it and compress it. I'm like, if that's the compressed version, then I can't wait for the rest of the week, right? Like it's going to be crazy, right? Okay, cool. So maybe let's talk about some highlights, some exciting parts for you. Mine personally, I had 2, which was the colorful icons, and of course the calculator app for iPad. But I want to hear what were your highlights throughout the whole event.
Yeah, I mean, few times do you get these days, it's quite difficult to impress, unfortunately. Like I remember, or I don't remember because I was way too young, but when they released video recording on the iPhone, it was, wow, this major new feature. And now they need to be doing a lot more to impress us. So I must say, the math notes feature, that was impressive. That was probably to me the most impressive piece of the presentation, just because yes, all the Apple Intelligence features are cool, but we've seen what AI is capable of. So
Yeah.
it's not something novel anymore that much. The colorful icons. Yeah, tell me more about why that was because they announced it and the room was quiet. It was like, I don't know. For me, it was like
Yeah.
because I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, for me, it felt like they're pulling book from, I don't know, like the Android 2008 something version, right? It's like, oh, we're like learning how to
Android
customize
One.
screens, right? Um, and I'm baffled, right? By two things, right? Like the icon color situation is very weird, right? Just from how Apple would do things, right? Like it feels like they're like, okay, want to give you more customization, but it's like, yeah, the way that we implement it is, really weird. That and the control center. I don't know if you've seen like these memes on Twitter, like with people with the control center with just like 20 volume rockers, because it allows you to do that now, right?
Look at mine. Look how weird it looks. I'm like, why is this allowed?
Yeah,
How are you able
to just mess up
I don't know if you're allowed to swear on this, but I don't know how you're allowed to like screw it up so much.
yeah.
Like imagine Granny trying to yeah.
And it's so delicate, right? It's like when you click and hold, you move something, you don't know what happened to it, and you let it go. But like there's literally like a thread of memes of just like people doing crazy stuff in the control center, right? Like just cover it with like 20 silent mode buttons, because
Oh,
you can do it
that's
now, right?
amazing.
And this has always been something that Apple had stayed away from, and I really enjoyed, because it felt simple and clean, and it's just what's there, right? Like it
Yeah.
felt like it's a tool that you kind of like have to use. And now there's a why do you think Apple is taking this turn now?
Because okay, so firstly, it's cool, right? I mean, we've been asking for more customization. That's the problem, and now they give it to us, and we're like, "What is this?" So, I do think as the iPhone's progressing, it's sort of entering this extremely mature phase, and it probably to them makes sense to now just make it more customizable because the custom icons grab attention. There are threads on Twitter about the weird control center thing. So I think a part of it is mainly just to be clear, to clearly show, oh, look, I have the new version, or look, I can do with it what I want to. I do think that the default iOS will still be usable enough, right? You don't have to customize if you don't need to. So I think having it just as an option is great. I love that you can remove the controls at the bottom. I like the clean look with nothing there. Um, but to be honest, even with like Apple Intelligence, they are very clever with adding in little uh, bits of sensation into it, right? So it's not like with Google's I/O where yes, there were some cool demos, but I couldn't comprehend how am I going to be using this on a daily basis. Whereas with Apple's Genmoji and their image, those types of little silly features almost.
Yeah.
They create these little sensations around it, and like with me emoji when Face ID came out. So that's quite clever, and I think that might be part of the intention behind it. It's just to seem like things are being kept fresh, so that you sort of stay engaged with your phone. There's a cool new feature. I don't know if that's very Apple of them,
Mm,
But
mm.
companies evolve,
Yeah.
so yeah. I'm all
Yeah,
for it. I'm all
interesting.
for a more customizable
Yeah, look,
experience. Why not?
yeah, I'm for it. Yeah, it's just that, yeah, those two were a little bit of a weird implementation for me, at least for now.
Mm.
That was really interesting to see. Um, Unfortunately, we can't preview Apple Intelligence. I've updated all my
Ah,
devices except the watch.
yes.
Did you manage to get your watch update?
I'm just going to update the phone for now.
Okay, okay,
Because I don't know, the other features aren't as
yeah.
exciting, to be honest. Did you update your computer as well? That's quite
Yeah,
risky.
yeah, I updated my computer and yeah, I've had two meetings where it crashed. Safari just, went
No.
off. My iPad widgets don't show. So if you pull the side, nothing happens.
Oh no.
It just shows a blurry screen, but no widgets. So yeah, I'm having an interesting
At
week
last.
so far.
With the
um,
first version.
I couldn't, yeah, I couldn't screw myself over with the watch as well. Like I couldn't get the update. I don't know if it's just because I'm using the SE. And the SE is not going to get the update or what is happening there.
Mm.
But yeah, I thought let me immerse myself in all of this and embrace it.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
mean, get the full experience so you can that's what it's for. It's
yeah.
for people like you to actually be able to report. Tell me one thing, since you are a designer as well. One thing that stood out to me is the new Photos app redesign on
Hmm.
iOS and
Hmm.
iPadOS. Tell me your thoughts around that.
Um, I like the look, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's kind of like where I like how they have done more intelligent. They've added more intelligence in it. They didn't call it Apple Intelligence, so yeah, let's call it machine learning with like how you can search photos and whatever it is. But from a design standpoint, I feel like there is a sense of navigation that was lost
Mm-hmm.
that could help you get through, different folders and things like that quicker, right? Think like the little bar at the bottom that would no longer have. I think it shows at some point if you keep
Mm-hmm.
scrolling and you get to the bottom or something like that.
Yeah, it shows,
But
but there's no navigation bar anymore. It's just
yeah,
one long list.
yeah. So for me, that is really yeah, it feels like I don't have control over exactly what I want to see. It would be great if I could maybe rearrange some of this list, the items on the list as to like which one do I want to see on the top,
You can.
right?
You can.
Oh, can you actually do
It's
that?
extremely, yeah, at the very bottom, there's customize. You can literally customize everything. Again,
Okay,
talking to this
okay.
element of
You've got a whole
customization.
customization thing. Yeah, again, right? Like not so Apple esque, right? It's like I use my phone as a tool. I want to get into it and kind of like, get into it. And yeah,
Mm,
it's like, okay, this is the default experience. It changed so much from what I was used to. Now I feel like I kind of like need to go through these pages, right? But yeah, interesting that you actually mentioned this customized thing, which I hadn't. I saw it, but I didn't
That's the
get
thing.
into
Like,
it to
I don't
figure
even know
out
if
what
I'm
is
even going to
happening.
use, to me, this is like too much customization almost.
Yeah.
Um, but it does to me try to solve a problem I've had with the Photos app for a while. This is why this is probably one of my favorite things that they announced. And the reason is I only ever use the recents folder on Photos.
Mm.
Recents and favorites. That's all I would ever use. Maybe go into a certain person. I would never use the other tabs.
Yeah.
Um, and now they remove the tabs. So I haven't really gotten to use it too much, but I'm interested to see if this actually does translate to, I don't know, a better experience,
Mm.
or just, yeah. But it's, to me, that's the most interesting change. You should see all the weird animations and things they have in there, like when you tap on the search, and
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, new design direction.
Yeah, I would say the photos and the calculator is probably where we saw the biggest updates, right? When it comes to iOS and iPad OS, of course. I haven't seen so much stuff on Sequoia, other than it crushing on me. But yeah, I'm still I'm still playing around. Um, what else did you find interesting in the Photos app? It sounds like you went into it quite a bit.
No, that to me, that's the I love the days and I
Yeah,
love the trips because I always forget the trips that I went on because I go on, a lot of trips, like at
yeah,
least once a month. We try to go somewhere. So it's really nice to see all of them just automatically grouped into these folders,
yeah,
and being able to browse them. So because I never used to use those featured features where it's like memories, I never used
yeah,
to
yeah,
use
yeah.
them.
I
But
also don't
trips,
use that.
like trips, if you quickly, I mean, that's what you're looking for when you go into photos. You want to see,
Yeah,
what did I do
yeah,
yesterday,
yeah,
2 days ago? Being able to filter out screenshots is also a great thing. So yeah, I think they did
yeah,
a pretty decent job. I don't want to know how my mom is going to use this. I'd love to see that.
yeah, yeah,
Love
yeah.
to see her face when she updates. But yeah.
Yeah, I liked the fact that it can also identify receipts now, because I have a lot of business receipts that I take photos of, and that is a pretty cool feature. And there's something that they demoed. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that feature is there yet, where you can kind of like look up text details on images. So if you've got like a
Mm.
ID image somewhere, because like I keep all my kids. I hope there's nobody who's gonna hack my phone here. I keep all my kids like documents on my phone, and like I have to go through
Mm.
all the time. And usually it's just the photos, right? Like I just take the photo, and that's
Mm.
it. So it'll be cool to like search screenshots with text. I think they demoed that, and I would like to see that. I haven't been able to do it on my phone so far.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I do think Apple Intelligence will allow for all of that. To me, the most interesting part is just like, oh, okay, only very limited devices will support the Apple Intelligence, and it's only coming later, right? So
Yeah,
it's very much an early preview of what this might be. I think the features will probably change a lot.
yeah.
Um, One thing that I saw, a really cool talk that wasn't featured at all, that I really enjoyed watching as a designer, is the one on the new CarPlay. So they have a few talks on the new CarPlay, and the one is just about the design system around designing for that new CarPlay experience with the dials and
Mhm.
how you can customize. So yeah, I would recommend anyone interested in design and design systems go check that one out. I found that one quite interesting.
Interesting, interesting. So yeah, maybe to close off, I see we've been on for a while now. I've actually not been recording time, my bad. Maybe just to close off, from product designer, developer point of view, kind of like, what do you see? What are you excited about kind of like unlocking in the next, I don't know when we're gonna see the full version of these softwares come to life, right? They say this fall. So yeah, post this fall. If you're in America, we're in winter right now.
Mm.
So what are some of the things that you kind of like interested in taking advantage of, playing around with, that you've seen? Obviously, we spoke mostly about the surface things, right? But I think there's a lot of, like you're saying, the CarPlay design system, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if there's any other things within the other operating systems that you've seen as well that you feel that, you definitely want to get your hands on that and start playing around with.
Yeah, I do think the obvious one is all the new intelligence features. And from a development and design standpoint, it's going to be interesting to see how, because they have released APIs or are releasing APIs for this, utilizing this. And obviously, there's many different ways in which you can do it. So I'm quite interested to see how apps will start to use a user's data in a secure way through this intelligence or feed into the overall experience. That's going to be a new thing. ChatGPT's never been able to plug into the OS itself and control things on the OS before. And luckily, there's a lot of privacy around that. Yeah, and yeah, I would say that's the main thing. Let's stick with that.
Okay. Well, I'm interested in, there's one feature that they showed, right? And I know you're also in the fintech space, and I wonder if there'll be kind of like APIs for people to use this payment tap to pay thing, right? I thought that was a really cool thing. I know it will probably be closed within the Apple Pay ecosystem, right? But yeah, if that was something that, developers can use, that would be really cool to kind of like tap into, build your own apps that utilize the native tap to pay features. Yeah, so interesting stuff coming out of WWDC. So Paul, where can people find you? What is exciting happening in your space? Where should we follow you? What will we find out if we do?
Yeah, I'm most active on LinkedIn, so find me there, Paul Lutz. You'll see me over there. Some exciting things I'm busy with is I have a monthly magazine that I bring out where I talk to some really cool industry experts in the product design and development space. So if you're a designer, dev, or a business building, it may be interesting there. And yeah, I'm currently collaborating with a couple of founders and startups to visualize their products. One is a new social based decentralized bank. I know that sounds like a lot, but I'm pretty sure we'll find a way when we get to the branding to make it sound a lot better. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Awesome. Well, great having you on the podcast. And yeah, we'll definitely catch up with you over on the socials. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the time.
Appreciate it, hey? Thanks.